Hi, you're listening to the It's Too Wonderful podcast. My name is Audrey Akins. I'm so glad you're here. This show is inspired by Psalm 139. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of It's Too Wonderful. Happy 2025. This is the first episode of the new year. So
filming this in 2024, that was like weird to hear you say that.
Oh yeah.
But it's like
yeah, we're in
literally
2024
right around the corner.
in this moment. That's something I always think about. It's just like the concept of time when I'm releasing these is so weird.
Because it's you film it and then it just appears like a week later and it's like
but
yeah.
It's so weird. Anyways, welcome. This is a really fun episode for me because Marina, for those avid listeners, know Marina.
Avid listeners.
Number one, that she is probably one of my most avid listeners. You text me every week. And it's like the highlight of my week, like what she's doing when she listens to the podcast episode.
Selfie included.
Yes. And also, we recorded an episode last year that was my number one on my Spotify Wrapped.
I'm like actually so honored because you didn't text me that. I just saw it was like Marina tagged by It's Too Wonderful on Instagram and I was like, huh? And then it was like most streamed episode and I was like texting everyone I knew and like, oh my gosh, I love It's Too Wonderful and now I'm so popular. It's so fun.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
And whoa, I just realized I was really close to the mic. Anyways, so Marina's in town for a couple days and literally 30 minutes ago we were like, should we record an episode?
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, of course we should. So
I love it.
We're here. Marina, what do you also we have tea. So and great, It's Too Wonderful fashion.
Yes, cheers.
It's what kind of tea is it, Marina?
A lemon ginger. And just like last episode, I have a cold. So excuse my voice.
Circle.
Yep.
Yeah, it's okay. We're
surviving.
We're surviving. It's cold season.
It is cold season.
I've known so many people who have colds. Anyways,
yeah.
Okay, what have you, instead of what have you most been looking forward to today, what have you been most looking forward to about just like this season? Maybe first month of 2025?
Yes, first month of 2025.
Like, what are you looking forward to? What are you hopeful for?
I think that just this last like couple months have been so busy. I've been either like out and about or I've had like lots of stuff busy at work and like Sadie got married this last 2 days ago.
We
and
were
like
just at a wedding this weekend. Yeah.
So that was like just a lot because it was like all this stuff I'd been really looking forward to and all this like busyness that I had. And now I'm going to go into 2025 and like I don't have any plans. Like I just can be still other than like I'm going to Hawaii in March to visit my grandparents. Other than that, it's like I have no plans and I'm like really excited to just like be still and not just have like the next thing, but like find time to just like sit into like a regular routine and not always be traveling and not always be busy and like, I mean, work will still be busy. It's work, but like just having time where it's like, okay, I don't have to be like prepping for my next trip. Like it's like, I can just be.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really looking forward to.
That's so nice.
In January specifically.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, we were just talking about this, but I feel like so often I'm such like an extremes person. I feel like I'm either so busy or I'm like so bored.
Yeah.
And when I'm busy, I'm overwhelmed that I'm busy, even though a lot of the times the things that I'm doing like are objectively fun.
Yeah.
And I just get so worn out, but then I'll be bored and then I'll just plan out my whole life and then inevitably I'll be busy again. So I think it's just this weird balance of figuring out how do I just structure my life so that I don't like fall on either extreme, but also just able to live in the extreme well, knowing that it's not forever. You know, like if your January is super busy or even if it's not, just being like, okay, thanks God that this is my life right now. And
like the rhythms that he gives you in the time are important to like know, because like it can be so hard to like be like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy, this is so stressful, versus like, oh, now I have nothing to do. And like I would be like so looking forward to a weekend where I didn't have to travel or I didn't have anything going on. And then the weekend would come and I'd be like, what do I do with myself now? Because I've been in this like fast go and now it's like, oh, like I have to be still, and I've been looking forward to this, but then I get to the moment and I'm like, oh, I'm bored.
It's the weird like it's the mental game of living for like the next thing.
Essentially,
like whether the next thing is rest, whether the next thing is, oh my gosh, I need to get out of here, I need to go on a trip. But then you get to that and you're dissatisfied. It's this sneaky like,
and I think that has to do with how like time happens. Like, you know, like I was looking forward to sorry, that was like time. I was looking so forward to Sadie's wedding, and it happened. I blinked and it was over. And it was like, not like, it was amazing and it was so fun, but now it's like I've been looking forward to it and now it's happened. And now I don't get to look forward to it anymore. I just get to look back on it and be happy about it. It's just like the nature of like when a moment comes and then you get to like really enjoy it, and then it's past. You know?
And it's so interesting how we like heighten some moments more than others. When really like the Lord gives us so many beautiful moments, like throughout every day. And we just lose sight of it because our mind likes to latch onto something to make us feel like safe and calm and secure. So you latch on to like, okay, when this happens or when this happens, then I'll feel this way. I don't know if y'all do that. That's what I do. And I think in 2025, I would like to learn a little bit more how to not live for the next thing, but instead live in each moment as it happens. So
it's a hard thing to tackle.
It's a hard thing to tackle. I don't think I'll tackle it in 2025, but maybe in 2045.
Maybe when the sweet Lord takes me home. That's when I'll figure it out.
Anyways, so last episode, or last time you came on, we talked about home. I don't even remember what the title was. Finding glimpses of
home and something.
New creation or something. Or maybe the opposite. Finding glimpses of new creation and home. Something like that. We talked about what home is and what heaven is and how those things can intertwine. And it was such a... Honestly, I should listen to that episode again. It was so fun to record. But maybe just fill in the listener on what's happened since then.
So much has happened since then. When we filmed that episode, it was like right before I graduated, right before I had finished my senior thesis. And probably like a week later, I had my senior show, presented all of my research for like my design degree, and just like finished it. One random Tuesday evening, I was just done with design school. And then I moved home for a little bit. I went to Europe with my sisters. And then I moved to New York. And it was like, everything just sort of was like new and different. And when I moved to New York, I started off living in Brooklyn at my cousin's apartment. And he has this like gorgeous apartment in Brooklyn. It was so nice. I was feeling like so bougie staying there. But I got into this sort of like routine of just like wake up, go to my new job, go to work, come home, go to bed. And I was sort of stuck in this rut when I was living in Brooklyn of like being really lonely, because I was like, how am I supposed to go out and meet people? Like, I've never been the best at like just going out and making friends. Like when I was at Belmont, all of the friends that I made, I can link back to my freshman year roommate. Like, she was
shout
out Danielle, was like, she is such an extroverted person. And like every person that I met came because like she introduced me to someone who introduced me to someone else. Like, and so I'm here alone in Brooklyn. My cousin travels all the time, so he wasn't there. And I'm just like, holy moly. A month ago, I was literally with all of my friends in Nashville. And now the majority of my friends are still in Nashville. And I'm here in New York, living in Brooklyn, completely by myself in this wonderful apartment. And I feel completely lost. And so that was really hard. And I was there in Brooklyn for like 2 months. And then I moved to the Upper East Side with Grace Catherine, who's been on the podcast. She is one of Audrey's good friends. And we've been living together now since August 2nd is when we both moved in. It's December. My watch doesn't even tell me. It's December 29th? 29th? December 29th. And for the past, like, what was that, 4 months? 4.5 months? we've been like living together, and it's been so nice to like come home to someone. And I've been slowly figuring out the city. It's a very, very big and overwhelming place. And I think in our last episode, we talked about how I was like, I'm going to be able to make a home there because like I know people and I'm going to be able to like do all this. And I had like all this hope. And not to say that I don't have that hope or that hope was like ruined, but it was a lot harder than I think I anticipated. And so I spent like a lot of time just like really battling this like internal struggle of like, how do I live here and also like enjoy myself and not feel so lonely? And how do I enjoy loneliness and how do I not let loneliness control me?
Yeah. And how to like to build home.
How to build home when I had gone in so confidently of like, oh, I'll be able to do it. Like I did it in Nashville, I'll do it here. But it's just like so, it was something about post grad makes it a lot harder to like meet people. And even people who are like here in Nashville have told me like, it's hard to make new friends. Like it's hard to meet people. It's hard to do that 9 to 5 and then go home and want to do stuff with your life. Like it's just a very different shift. And like just the way I structure my life, the way that like people, I used to always be like, oh, let's grab coffee. Now it's like, I can't do that unless I schedule you 4 Saturdays in advance because anytime I want to get coffee, it has to be a Saturday morning.
And it's just hard because like that's not, that's awesome. Like having a coffee and like maybe having a great conversation. But what you're looking for is like people to do life with.
Yeah.
And you can't do life with someone you like
you don't know yet.
Once a month.
Yeah, once a month. Yeah. So
it's, I think before we get into like the home thing, I want to talk a little bit about friends and like the dynamic of community and how that changes post grad. Because I think a lot of people listening to this are either in post grad season or just started or are looking at an upcoming post grad season. And I think there's a lot of fear and anticipation of like, oh my gosh, how are my friends going to change? I mean, all across, you have different situations all across the board, whether you're moving away from your college town, whether you're staying in your college town, whether your friends are moving away or all your friends are staying, it's going to look different. Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard.
Yeah. It's a really, really difficult time because everybody has to enter into something new. And you're not like most people, unless you're going to grad school, aren't entering into like, oh, this is what the next 4 years looks like. Like from high school to college, it's like, oh, well,
structured.
4 years of high school, now I'm going into this 4 years of college. It's like, no, I'm entering into this job that I'm doing for the foreseeable future. Is it the rest of my life? I don't know. Is it the next year? I don't know. Is it the next 5 years? I don't know. Like, it's just like, you move into this like, okay, now you just sort of have the rest of your life until you retire. Like, you know? Yeah. And so that's kind of like a daunting feeling to have while also trying to adjust to a new city, adjust to a new place, make new friends, and like also hold it all together and also lean on God. Yeah. Like it sounds like, I don't know, it's been a hard thing for me to manage of like taking all of those feelings and those emotions and those hard things and like just giving them to God because it all feels so uncertain. And it's something that it's like in the past, I feel like, oh, like I'd be able to just give it to God. But for some reason, it's been this hard battle of like, I've been so like in this mindset. And I think it also has to do with New York of just like, go, 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 go. That sometimes it's like, I forget to give it to God because I'm so busy. I'm so like everything's moving.
Well, there's the perception of the fact that you have like a lot of control over it. And I don't know, I think it's so interesting. Like when you're in college, the friends you make often, I think most people can safely say that if you went to college, your friends also went to that same school, so you all had that in common. And like at Belmont, school spirit wasn't a big thing, but there still is like a little bit, and most schools have. So you have that shared spirit of like, we're all trying to graduate together. Yeah. And you're like on a team together. Yeah. And that's what bonds you. And then what happens once you've accomplished that goal together? I think unless a lot of times like the friendship will change, and that's not always a bad thing. I think it's really interesting when people talk about like post-grad depression. Yeah. I think for me, I was always really nervous about that of like, oh my gosh. Well, I wasn't really nervous about it. I was more like, I'm going to be the person that doesn't get depressed
never
after college. And I'm bigger than that because post-grad depression are just for the people who like peaked in college and like don't know how to do life outside of school.
Yeah.
Which I'm just exposing my own pride. But I think it's so interesting because I think what it is really is just, and like coming at it from a Christian perspective, which we always do on this podcast, is you're shifting from, at least community and friend wise and life wise, you're shifting from structure and like community goal oriented to no structure, and there's no collective goal that you're trying to accomplish alongside anyone else.
Yeah, everyone has like their own goals outside of college because like the majority of our friends weren't the same major. Like it's not like we were all friends who were like all studying to be interior designers and we all wanted to get a job in New York and we all wanted to do that. Like no, that was me and that was my goal. I wanted to get a job at a good company in the Northeast so I could be closer to my family, closer to my people. And for you, your goal was different. For me, for my friend Sadie, it was go to PT school, get married. She just got married. I'm gonna keep talking about her marriage. Like, and for Ashlyn, like get her PhD, like, and Lauren do her new job of like learning to do stuff outside of teaching and like build that. And it just like everybody has their like different goals outside of college versus graduate, which is what we were all doing before. Like get through it, get your homework done by the end of the day and still hang out with people on the weekends. Like that was like a collective goal of like get good grades, get a good job and get graduated. And now it's like, okay, what do I want to do with my career? Like, how do I want to grow my career? How do I want to grow my relationships with the people like that I'm friends with? How do I want to eventually like set myself up for my future? Like it's all different because we all are now on like our own different paths versus like just what the like kindergarten through college that like most people in the US are set up for.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I mean, to be quite honest, I don't think we all became friends because we were like so focused on graduating and like wanted to graduate together. It was proximity. Yeah, like literally. These are the people that are around me. We can laugh together. We can have a good time. So, and it's easy to hang out. So let's hang out. And I think that there's this. I think what it is there's this pressure. I'm like questioning this out loud. I don't know the answer, but like there's this pressure I think in life to I mean, it's just interesting when you change, when your life changes, your surroundings change, and that means the people around you change. And a lot of times that's just like situational. That's what happens. And I think it's pretty clear the people that you're like, okay, they might not be in my immediate circle anymore, or like they might not be physically around me, but I think they're going to be with me for a while longer, but you also don't know.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Life's crazy. There's people I'm friends with that I'm like, I would never thought I would still be friends with you. And then there's people that I'm not as close with anymore that's like, oh, dang, I probably wouldn't have predicted that. But what's really cool is I think that there's this trust that the Lord puts people around you for that time and that season. Yeah. And there's no pressure and there's nothing wrong with community changing. I don't like... Yeah. And a lot of times I think we make it harder than it needs to be. Like if you're struggling to find friends, I don't know, Marina, what you've been doing, but like it's the people around you, right? It's your coworkers. It's the people you go to church with. Yeah.
And I think part of that too is like I've been spending a lot more time alone. And I think in that, like for a while it was like I don't have as much community. I'm sort of like lonely, whatever. But I came to the realization that it was like, this is a time when I'm supposed to be intimate with God. And like that God there's like, that's where we wanted to go. It's like, there's times when God really wants you to pour into your community and the people who are building you up and people who are growing your faith together under God. And sometimes God just wants to do that on his own. And I think when he wants to do that on his own, like he gives you the people that you need in that moment. Like I think that Grace Catherine as my roommate has been like an enormous blessing from God just to sort of give me encouragement while he's simultaneously building me up and like wanting me to be in like alone with him. He's given me a friend who I can still spend my time alone with God, but she's also like a companion and someone who's in a like similar boat of moving to a new city, like making new friends. And like he's gifted me with a person who can lift me up and encourage me while simultaneously my primary focus is still on being intimate with God in this time when I don't necessarily have like a large community like I did in college. And I think that has been something that like he's been teaching me through this feeling of like, originally I was like, oh, I'm just so lonely. There's no reason for being this lonely. And then it's like, no, but God really wants to speak to me, and he wants to speak to me without the distraction of others right now. He wants to speak to me purely in my lowest moment, purely in a moment where I am just feeling like I have no one else I can turn to that's like physically there. Yeah. And so that's been like something that I've been really learning to understand and like talk through with God. And even in the moments where I feel like I'm so overwhelmed and I'm like not even bringing it to him, it's like I know that he's working in me and he's giving me those moments of like, he's giving me those moments and he's telling me to come to him. And even when I don't, I still feel this sense after that, like, even if I didn't bring it to him right then, like I brought it to him eventually and he's there and he's proud of me for that. And he's teaching me more and more to bring it to him when I need to bring it to him. Yeah. So
there's so much grace. Yeah. That's so beautiful. And like, I just think that there's so much purification that happens in the wilderness, like in loneliness. And I think I talked about this recently, and maybe it was my Advent series, but how a lot of times when you find yourself alone, like that feels like the modern day version of being in the wilderness. Because I think I actually know a few people who have done this, but not a lot of people like physically put themselves in the wilderness.
You would know people who have put themselves in the wilderness, Audrey.
To like hear the Lord. Like genuinely, I have friends who have done that, but most of us, like, that's just not like our life right now. But the wilderness is like so refining. That's where Jesus was when he was tested. And I think that like in a sense, the Lord delights in purifying his children, and that happens in testing, and that happens in the wilderness. And I think our modern day version of wilderness can sometimes be loneliness. And there's a difference between purposefully putting yourself in a place of loneliness and looking around and all of a sudden being like, oh, things are looking like a little deserty right now. Like I think so, but I trust that like God is leading me, like, right. He's leading me through this. He's leading me through all these different surroundings and climates and versions of my life. And I trust that. And I trust that he's going to teach me something in each season. And I think sometimes it can be so quick in the loneliness to be like, oh my gosh, I need to make friends. I don't have a community. I must be failing at life. Yeah. But if you are genuinely following and love the Lord, like look around you. There's a friend. Like you have a friend.
I do.
You don't have 20 or 30 people that you could text and hang out with, but like the Lord gives you what you need. He gives his children what they need in that season.
Yeah. I think it's also like crazy too that like in a city like New York where there are millions and millions, not millions, I don't know how many people live in New York, probably millions of people in New York, like a lot of people in New York, he still found a way to make that a wilderness for me that he could minister to me in. Like you'd think like in this sea of people, how could somebody feel alone? But in that way, he's still like, even in this place of like this pure metropolis, like he has created a wilderness for me to walk through with him, even though it's like this place that would seem like such a vibrant place that where you're just like, oh, you just fall into community. And like I slowly have been starting to build that. Like those first 3 months were really hard. And then Grace Catherine got here and things started to get better. And I actually joined a community group, which has been like a really great way to like get me connected. And I had been in a time like right before I joined it where I was like texting with my friend Ashton being like, I just like really want to like make connections and I want to feel like I have a place here. Like if you could just pray for like me to find some community. And she was praying for me. And I know that when I ask Ashton to pray for me, that she prays for me because I was at this community group and I'd been like, kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to go. And then I looked at the address and it's literally on my street. And like of all the places in New York it could be, It is literally like I walk across the street, I go one building over, and it's right there. That's literally it. It takes me 30 seconds to walk over. The community group starts at 7. I leave at 7:01, so I'm fashionably late. And I walk in the door at 7:02, and I'm like there.
Wow.
It takes me longer to walk down my 5 flights of stairs than it does to get into the building. And so...
You're like, okay, got it.
So I was like, okay, so you really want me to go? And so I was like, all right, I'll go. I get there, and there's this boy who's there, and I noticed that he had like a Texas A&M ring on. And my friend Ashton, her husband, goes to A&M, or went to A&M. And so like we're sitting there, everyone's introducing themselves, and I mentioned that I went to Belmont, and then he says something about being from Texas. And I was like, by any chance did you go to A&M? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I know people who went there. I know one person who went there. And then he goes, by any chance did the person you know marry a girl from Belmont in June? And I was like, Ashton Foley? And he was like, Zach Tucker's my little. And I was like, what? And so Ashton, who had been actively praying for me, now Ashton Tucker, was literally, like, I literally was then placed into a community group that with someone who knew her, who directly knew her, who was at her wedding with me. We were then looking through photos of the wedding on his phone. There's a photo of me in the background on his phone.
Wow.
Like, God actively placed me in a community group with the person who knows the person I'd asked to pray for me. And it was like...
It's like a piece of home.
Yes, exactly. Like, he had given me... And, like, me and this guy aren't super, like, close. But in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, like... This is God affirming, not only did he place this group on my street, he placed a person in this group who has connected to the person I had asked to pray for me for this.
Wild.
And so since then, it's been like, I've had some like busyness that I like couldn't get to the group as often as I wanted to. And I'm still growing connections through that. But like, that was just like such a blessing for me in like a week where I was really like, you know, I thought that moving out of Brooklyn, things would get better. And I was like, oh, I don't know, like things don't seem to be getting better. And I put all this pressure on like my move to the Upper East Side that it was going to like make me suddenly love New York. And it was like, then, and I've been feeling like disappointed because I like still wasn't feeling that way. And then I go to this group and it's like, this is a reminder that there's like still hope, that God is still working. Like I'm not giving up on New York. I'm not giving up on myself here. Like God is still working here. And like since then I've been starting to make connections in that group and like feel really comfortable every time I'm there. And like the community group leader is so nice. And like she's offered to like have me come cook at her place because I don't have an oven in my apartment. And like just like now I sort of feel like I have this like connection, like people who know my name.
Wow.
And so like that feels really good. It feels really good to like have people who know who you are. And like I can go to church and if I see anyone from my group, like they'll smile and wave and it's like, oh, like that feels good.
And sometimes that's where you start.
Yeah.
And that's enough for that season of
exactly.
like, I have someone who recognizes me. And like that is so special.
Yeah.
And just cherishing that of sometimes that's what you have. You have people that can recognize you. Maybe they don't know like how you came to know Jesus or your whole life story, but they recognize you and that's enough.
Yeah.
And just understanding that friendships take time. I literally read a Wall Street Journal article this morning of I think it takes 200 hours to like form like a close friendship with someone on average.
On average. Yeah.
That's 200 coffee dates.
Which I have like once every 3 weeks.
Like that's
you know?
not.
Yeah.
I think just accepting the reality that like you're not gonna have as many close friends as you did in a time of life when you had A, more time to spend with people, B, could walk down the hallway to spend time with them.
Yeah.
Like just having realistic expectations for this season of life and also giving yourself grace for like you don't need to have a friend group or even a bunch of friends to like have good community because also friends and community don't always go
hand in hand.
Always sometimes they're different and that's okay. I don't know. Is there any like piece of advice you would give someone who like maybe just moved to a new city or is just struggling to make friends in a new season of life?
I think that the biggest piece of advice would be to not, like you've said, like not put the pressure on yourself and on the place. Yeah. And like not letting the making friends and having community mean what like makes or breaks the place for you. Like, because I think when I first got to New York, I was like, oh shoot, I don't have any friends here. This must mean I'm not meant to be here because I don't have people. But that doesn't mean I wasn't meant to be in New York because I love my job. And like I would go to work every day feeling like, oh my gosh, I worked my butt off for 4 years to be a designer, and now I'm a designer in New York City and I'm doing what I studied and I love it. And it's like, maybe that's why I'm in New York for right now, not because I'm going to go and I'm going to make like 40 new friends and like have like the best days of my life with these people, but maybe it's like I'm here in this place because it's affirming that I studied what I needed to study to be in a place and a career that makes me joyful. And like maybe that's why I'm here, and putting the pressure on myself that like, oh, the friends and the community is what makes or breaks a place. It like makes you less appreciative of the things that you have that are really good. Like I love my neighborhood. I love being able to just walk to Central Park. And like I love all the food that I've gotten to try. Like my boyfriend Mark and I have done so much food. Like we've done so many food adventures and tried food from so many different places, and like I've had so many great memories in the city. And like when people ask me about New York, and I'm like, yeah, it's been hard. Like there's a lot of things that like I'm getting used to. And then I'm like, wait, but there's also like a lot that I've really loved about New York. And I think sometimes I forget to tell them that because I'm like so focused on the aspect of like, oh, I haven't really made a lot of friends yet. So that might make it seem like I don't like it.
Yeah.
But just because I don't have friends right now doesn't mean that I'm not like appreciating New York and the things that it's brought me and the things that it's teaching me and the things I've gotten to do. Like I absolutely love just like walking through the park and randomly ending up somewhere on the west side and going and finding a coffee shop. That is so fun for me. I don't need to do that with a person for me to get joy out of that. I don't need to do that with like my best friend to be able to feel like I'm having a great time. You know, like I can do that alone. I can wander in the city and like that's a good thing. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of goodness about New York that comes from taking the expectation off of like you have to have friends to be happy. And I'm not saying I don't have friends or like that you friends aren't important, but like saying like making or breaking this place just because I don't have the community I had before. And I think that it's hard too because like when I was in high school I never had like a big friend group, and then I got to college and I instantly had these people that I was like, these are the friends I've been praying and praying and praying for. And then to leave that good thing and go to something new was hard, but now it's like I've been given another good thing that is like my job and like getting me closer to my family and my boyfriend. It's like those are such good things
that
and
you
just
wanted
that
and
I wanted and I always wanted, and he gave them to me.
And we're so quick to like point out, oh well, this is what I'm missing.
This is what I'm missing in a place where he's actually handed me everything I asked him for.
Wow.
He granted me a place. I was praying. I said, God, I would love to work in the Northeast. I want to be closer to my family. I want to do something that's different. And I want to feel fulfilled. And I want a good job. I have all of those things.
Wow.
And it's not because I didn't say, and I want a budding friend group that like I can go and do all this stuff with all the time, that he didn't give that to me. It's just like he's answering all of these prayers. And now it's making me realize how important that was. And now I'm actively praying for that again and waiting for God to give that to me in the time that it's right.
Yeah.
Because I actively prayed for friends like this that I have now, like with you and all of my other friends and all of our other friends. Like I actively prayed for that like in high school, and I had my best friend in high school and I never saw the rest of that come to fruition. And then I saw it in college. And then in college I was praying for the job, I was praying for the move, like, and now I have that. And it's like I've watched how God answers his prayers in his time.
Yeah.
And another thing that was like a really like great sign of hope for me was I went to Boston in the summer right before I moved into the Upper East Side, and I got to spend the weekend with my older sister, and she started going to this church like I don't remember, it was like last year, maybe even 2 years around this time, I can't remember. But God, I had been praying for her for so long, for God to give her a Christian community, for God to sort of like meet her in a church place, because she hadn't really been going to church in college. She had just been doing other things, and that was great. And she but when she started wanting that, like I was really praying for God to give that to her. And then I went to Boston, and she has this like great group of friends who are like everything I've ever prayed for her. And I was at church with her. We played pickleball with them, and we celebrated her birthday, and like some of her church friends came. And the whole weekend I was just filled with like so much joy, because I was like, this was God answering my prayer for my sister to have this community. And I prayed for that, and it took God, like he took his time giving it to her, and he gave it to her when he wanted her to have it. And I was like, that's hope that he's going to do that for me too, because he did it for my sister. And like we said, like it is said that like what we ask for, God will provide for us in his time and in his will. And like, when it is his will, I truly trust that I'm going to have like a group of people in my city that I really love and are going to feel like a really great like community. And right now, he's already like half answering that. Like, he has given me one person who I feel really, really connected to and I feel really just like home with, and that's Grace Catherine. Like, she has been someone who feels so familiar, even when she doesn't even realize it. Like, she sort of grounds me, and that's been really awesome. And like, he's continuing like to do that and like giving me those little hopes of like, he does answer my prayers, even though it's like almost like the expectation that things should feel hard and things change should feel big. Like, it's breaking that down a little bit of like, okay, but God is still answering it in little ways and in his time.
And it's so beautiful because I think there's something I've been thinking about is how we humans don't like change. I think that's a pretty universal statement in general. Humans don't like change. We don't like it. It's very disorienting. And I think it's really damaging when we latch our hearts and our souls onto something that's changing. And almost like we were created to be latched onto something that doesn't change. And that's what's so beautiful about knowing and following the Lord is he will never change. He will always be by your side. And that's why we can do a life that changes, because it's not our home. Nothing here we're attached to. So like, let that be an encouragement to you. Like, you are following and loving a Lord that will never change. That is in his character. Yeah. And that is so, so beautiful. I forgot to tell you, Marina, I'm making shorter episodes, so we're going to wrap this one and then we're going to do another one. Okay. But, anyways, stay tuned for the rest of our conversation. That'll be happening next week. Love you all. See you soon.